So this video will either come to like a surprise to some of you, or make you guys just wonder what's taking so long, since, I'll finally tackle the classic Sonic games, doing them all in one video, since, they're all short games, like 2 to 3 hours, maybe 4 hours at the most. I know this probably be more appropriate if I did this for like the 35th anniversary, which is next year, but like, let's be real here, I was gonna do this like at one point or another. Kind of like the Crash Bandicoot PS1 games, reviewing the classic Sonic games was never really something that was like really rushing to do, because everyone's already talked about these games, and honestly, I don't feel like I have anything interesting to add, because we all know these games. Sonic the Hedgehog, I feel like most of us can agree that these games are really good and one of the most defining games of the 16-bit era. But how did this blue rat that we sometimes love come to be? I'm pretty sure even if you're not a Sonic fan, you probably already noticed, but Sonic's conception was developed in the late 80s to early 90s. Sega wanted a mascot that can rival with Nintendo's Mario, because at this point, Nintendo wasn't really taking them seriously as a competitor, because their original mascot, Alex Kidd, kind of failed to find himself an audience, which led him to be forgotten for years to come. But it hasn't been all too bad for him, because he did get a remake of the first game a couple years back after 31 years of nothing. I mean, it's a start. Let's hope that Ed can get that same treatment. Anyway, Nato Ishima sent a bunch of character designs to Sega, all of which become aspects of different Sega properties, interestingly, like an armadillo, which would become Mighty, a rabbit that can use his ears to collect items, which was a mechanic that would be featured in Rise Star, which I've never played, and a fat man in pajamas based off of Theodore Roosevelt that would become Eggman, which has always been his name in Japan, but they named him Robotnik in America because... But then they dropped Robotnik moniker in Sonic Adventure 2 after that and just started calling him Eggman because... Out of all the designs that Oshima created, the Hedgehog with the spiky spines was the one that stood out the most. His codename was originally Mr. Needle Mouse, but it was then changed to Sonic. The basis of the song's development was to appeal to the younger market, make him look as cool as possible to represent Sega, his blue fur color to match the Sega logo, his gloves and shoes, which were oddly inspired by Michael Jackson's Bad album. Fun fact, Sonic's colors are actually the inverse of Mario's colors. Mario has a red hat and shirt and blue overalls, while Sonic's entire body fur is blue and his shoes are red. If that was done on purpose, I'll let you decide. So after Sonic's final design was made, a group of 15 people dubbed themselves as Sonic Team and started developing the first Sonic game. With a soundtrack developed by Masato Nakamura of Dreams Come True, and Sega sponsoring said bands to run their 3 tours, just so they could give out pamphlets advertising the game and showing off footage before it was even released. Sonic the Hedgehog was released on the Sega Genesis on June 23rd, 1991 in the States. It was released 2 days earlier in the European region and was released in July of that year in Japan. Because it replaced Altered Beast as a packing game for the Genesis bundle, it did financially well, selling over 15 million copies. This is actually kind of crazy, because like, I used to think that Sonic 1 was actually like a launch title for the Sega Genesis, but that system came out in 1989 in North America, well, not in 1991, the year that Sonic 1 was released. Kind of tripped me out when I first found that out. Kids were finding out about who the Sonic character was and was actually enjoying him more than Mario, making this the first time Nintendo actually had some serious competition, since no one really stepped up to them after the video game Crash of '83. First moment on Sonic would officially become Sega's big mascot, becoming a full flagship franchise, and will go on to create a long-running, dedicated, and questionable community. So that's it for history lessons, and this is usually where I'll talk about, my history with the franchise I'm talking about, but it's kind of weird thinking about this, because like, even though like Sonic is one of my favorite franchises of all time, I've actually never really like gone into like full detail about my history with this franchise on this channel. So assuming this is the first video of mine that you're watching, I've been a huge fan of Sonic the Hedgehog since I was 4 years old. I might have mentioned this in my Sonic Advance Trilogy video, but one of my earliest memories of playing Sonic was when I moved into a new house and found a Game Boy Advance lying somewhere around, probably from where the whole family used to live. My dad bought me Sonic Advance 2 for it, so I had something to play for it. I remember really loving the game, but I wouldn't play it again until a couple years back when I made that video on the Sonic Advance Trilogy. I feel like what really made me a big Sonic fan was when I saw my friends playing Sonic Generations, specifically when they're doing the Shadow Rival battle. I just thought it looked so cool when I saw that for the first time. I also got to play Mario and Sonic at the Winter Olympic Games on the Wii, which personally my most nostalgic game on that console. Which sounds kind of weird saying that out loud, since most people who had a Wii grew up with Mario Galaxy, Mario Kart Wii, Wii Sports. Meanwhile for me, hey man, so what's your favorite Wii game? Oh, it's just Mario and Sonic at the Winter Olympic Games.
Your life literally is as valuable as a summer end.
I think they also had Sonic Unleashed on a 360 too, but I actually played that game on my brother's PS3, but I actually didn't play that much of the game because I remember the Werehog scaring me when I was younger. Keep in mind that this was me when I was 4 years old. I also knew another person who had a GameCube, which is how I experienced Sonic Heroes and Sonic Adventure 2 for the first time, and those were some of my favorite memories of Sonic 2. This is also how I played Sonic 06 for the first time. I got a game over at the first level and found that there's no autosave feature, meaning I had to start from the beginning. and I didn't play it again until 10 years later. I bought this PS3 copy at a local game store that sold retro games that's now closed now, and I got some stuff to say about it, but I'll save that for an eventual review. I also played Shadow the Hedgehog 2 when I was over there, but I never really got a full opinion of that game since I only spent like 20 minutes playing it. And I played all these games, but they were already out for a while before I finally got to play them. The first Sonic game that I remember following when it was first coming out was Sonic Lost World. I was like 6 years old when Lost World was first revealed, and I thought it looked really cool, even though a lot of people didn't really have a lot of good things to say about it when it was first revealed. I remember playing the demo for the 3DS version. I thought that it was fine. I actually wouldn't play the game until 2022, almost 10 years since the game first came out. I played the PC version, which I actually got on a giveaway. I like to say that I liked it more than most people did. Then there was some of the show that Sonic had, and most people remember the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog or Sonic Sat AM, but the first Sonic show that I remember watching was actually Sonic Underground when it was on Disney XD, of all things, and I honestly feel like that was some kind of random dream that I had because I don't know anybody else who's seeing it that way. By the way, that theme song still goes hard to this day. But then we got the other shows, Sonic X and Sonic Boom. I just remember catching all those promos for Sonic X when it was coming on Vortex. Like, it was so cool to see. Like, I loved the first 2 seasons, and the Meteorite Saga was fine, it just wasn't really for me. But really some of my best memories of Sonic was just seeing all the stuff that fans made, like watching Let's Plays on Sonic from people like Commander9456. Seeing some of the animations like Sonic Shorts, Sonic Zombies, Nozzle Unleashed. Oh, let me tell you something about this. This is one of the greatest fan animated projects I've ever seen in my life. Like, this might be because of nostalgia, but goddamn, I still get goosebumps to this day watching it. Dark Sonic used to scare me though. Then we got all the AMVs that fans used to make back then. Even though Sonic fans can be loud, obnoxious, annoying, and just straight up degenerate sometimes, and I unfortunately know that all too well, they're some of the most passionate community of people I've ever met, and that's something I can appreciate. Shit, I probably wouldn't even met some of my closest friends without Sonic. Not just my online friends, but my real life friends I've known for over 10 years at this point, so I gotta thank you, Sonic. The quality in between games are so wildly inconsistent that you bring people together. So I'm now realizing that this video is getting close to 10 minutes long and we haven't even talked about the games yet, so let's talk about the memories for later. Like, because even though I haven't really grown up with the classic games, I got some like prior history that I want to talk about with them. So starting off with quadrilogy, we have Sonic the Hedgehog 1, released back in 1991. The story for this game was very basic, and it was back when you could have a simple story in a video game without people complaining about it not being deep or thematically rich, and also something that isn't told in the game itself. The mad scientist Dr. Robotnik is storing animals in the robots, and now Sonic has to stop him. Got it? Okay, good, moving on. For a first game, it sets up the blueprints for what the other games will follow afterwards. Sonic's main objective is to run around, collect rings, bounce on badness, run through signposts, and die. Sonic's movements are pretty simple. He can move left to right, jump, and roll into the ball while rolling down a slope. Going through the stages, you'll find a bunch of badniks that can hurt Sonic, and honestly, for a game that came out in the early 90s, this game has some pretty good enemy variety. You have the Motobugs, which are pretty easy to kill, the flying Motobugs, which shoot out energy pellets, these orb guys that throw spiky balls at you, and a lot more. To take out these enemies, you need to use your super spin attack, or what everyone calls it, jumping, to take them out. This is actually the only classic Sonic game to not have a spin dash, since that was introduced in Sonic 2. And while Sonic's moveset is already pretty decent, I can imagine that it was hard for people who played Sonic 2 first to get used to that. It was hard for me to get used to it too, because I actually played the mobile release of Sonic 1 by Christian Whitehead for the first time, which had the spin dash, so it was kind of weird for me too. I might as well just get this out the way right now. I played the classic Sonic games when I was younger, but I never beat any of them besides Sonic CD because I was complete garbage at them, and I wouldn't beat them until 5 years ago. For Sonic 1, when I was playing the mobile version, I couldn't get past Marble Zone. Then when I played it again on the DS Collection, I couldn't get past Labyrinth Zone. When you're traveling throughout the levels, you'll see these rotating rings. If you collect any of them, it gives you an extra hit point, but if you get hit with the rings fly away and you have to pick up some rings to get back up. Get hit with no rings, you're down 1 life. Speaking of lives, you start off the game with 3 lives, but you can also get extra lives by either collecting 100 rings, getting 50,000 points on the score, or destroying one of the monitors hidden in the stage that contains an extra life. If you lose all your life, you get a game over, but if you have a continue, you can continue from where you left off, but if you don't, you have to start from the beginning. And since this game came out during a time where saving your game wasn't really a thing yet, you have to start from Green Hill Zone every time you get a game over. I don't think that's too bad because this game isn't too long. There's only 6 levels and the footage I recorded clocked in little over 2 hours. Locating these levels, you can find some power-ups in these monitors like a blue shield that gives you an extra hit point, invincibility, 10 rings, and speed shoes. Sonic also dies instantly from falling down bottomless pits and getting crushed, so watch out. As for the levels, Sonic 1 is kind of hit or miss when it comes to that. Green Hill is one of the most iconic levels in video game history. It's bright, colorful, has a bunch of loot and momentum-based platforming, which is all thrown out the window with slow-ass Marble Zone, with a bunch of waiting and terror and so many death traps just sitting there waiting to get you off guard. I hated this level when I was younger because it was the main reason why I couldn't beat Sonic 1 for a while. Now I can get past the stage without dying, but it still doesn't stop me from getting hit though. Then we got Spring Yard Zone, which isn't really as good as Green Hill, but it's better than Marble Zone though. There's more high-speed action here than it was in the last level, but there's also these slow platforming sections, but they're not too bad. Labyrinth Zone, probably the most infamous level in this game, and for good reason too. 1, it's a water level, which is already one of the least liked video game level types. 2, this is where we found out that Yuji Naka had a brain fart and thought that Hedgehog couldn't swim, causing the drowning theme to haunt the dreams of many 90s Sonic fans. And 3, it's slow as hell, not just because of the water, but also because of how easy it is to get hit but get into hazards if you're not careful. Then we get the Starlight Zone, which is honestly my favorite level in the game. Same high-speed action that I liked in the Green Hill Zone. There's no slow sections that bring down the pace, no awkward gotcha moments, just pure platforming with some slow stops that doesn't become too intrusive. Plus my favorite song in the game, it's just so cheery. I should get Sonic 1 soundtrack away real quick because it's not in my top 5 overall song soundtracks or even my top 5 classic Sonic soundtracks, but it still has its bangers. Of course, Green Hill Zone being as iconic as Mario's World 1-1 and Jungle J's from Donkey Kong Country. But some other lesser known songs like Starlight Zone, Brain, and I hate to admit it, but Labyrinth Zone themes are also pretty good too. Speaking of scrapping, that's the final level of Sonic 1, and it pulls no punches. The level opens up with a trapdoor into a bottomless pit, which is honestly a pretty funny troll. There's a bunch of saw blades to avoid, fire that can burn you, and a bunch of tricky platforming sections. If it wasn't for Eggman Land and Sonic Unleashed or Deadline and Pirate Island from Sonic Rush and Rush Adventure, I would label this as the hardest final level in the series. To be honest, I actually kinda like this level. Compared to the other 2 hard levels in the game, the difficulty feels more fair than cheap. At the end of every level, you encounter Robotnik using one of his contraptions, which are usually a joke. Even the final boss isn't even that hard, even though you have to beat with no rings. The one in Starlight Zone is the only one that's actually unique because you gotta use one of the level gimmicks to win. Once you reach the end of the level and have 50 rings or over, you can jump inside this giant ring which leads you into a special stage. Here you control Sonic in what's the equivalent to an acid trip to collect all the 6 Chaos Emeralds without falling into the low ring and ending it prematurely. If you get all the Chaos Emeralds, you get the good ending, which is that Green Hill now has flowers. Oh, and Eggman gives the ending credit, the Pixar lamp treatment. So that's Sonic the Hedgehog, the game that started Blue Bird's legacy, and it definitely feels like the first game in the series. When it comes to classic Sonic, I don't really come back to this game that much, if I'm being honest. If I'm coming back to this game at all, I'm most likely playing it through the mobile version because that version has the spin dash and autosaving, making it the definitive version of the game for me. I don't think that Sonic 1 is bad, but when comparing it to the more refined Sonic 2 and 3, this game feels more archaic. But again, this game did do something amazing, and it was starting a legacy, since this was the best selling Sonic game on the Genesis. Sonic 1 has been ported multiple times though. You got the Sonic Jam Collection on Sega Saturn, the Sonic Mega Collection and Gems Collection on GameCube, Sonic Genesis on GBA, and it's shit. The collection on the DS, the Genesis Collection on PS3, 360, and PC, and more recently the Sonic Origins Collection. I can't take its legendary status away from it. This is personally my least favorite classic Sonic game, but then again, at first it needed to exist so that a sequel can improve on it, because about a year and a half later we got Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So before we get to Sonic 2, let's talk a little about the developmental history. Before Sonic 1 was even released, Yuji Naka actually quit Sega because of financial issues and creative differences. Mark Cerny, who helped out with Galactic Protector, established the Sega Technical Institute, also known as STI, which was a development company meant to pick up aspiring American developers to get training and experience Japanese developers. While he was meeting up with his other Japanese colleagues, he learned about Yuji Naka's situation and offered him to join, and he did for a high-paying salary. I mean, I can't judge, gotta pay a bill somehow. Masato Nakamura also comes back to compose the soundtrack, and even though I think that Sonic 1 soundtrack is still pretty good, Sonic 2 is personally my third favorite classic Sonic soundtrack behind Sonic CD's Japanese soundtrack and Sonic 3. My personal favorites are Aquatic Ruins, The Winged Fortress, Mystic Caves, Casino Night, Chemical Plant, and the final boss theme. Anyway, Sonic 2's development started in early 1992, and most of the development team were American since the Japanese side didn't show up yet. Because of all that, Sonic 2 went through some pretty problematic development to say the least. Creative differences of discourse between developers, mechanics that were removed like Sonic smacking himself into a wall, levels getting removed like the infamous Hidden Palace Zone, Wood Zone, and Sand Shower Zone. Apparently Sonic 2 would have been double the size if all the levels that were planned went into the final game. While thinking of ideas, Yuji Naka wanted to come up with a character who had a huge appreciation for Sonic, and he also wanted the character to play in the 2-player mode. That character would be Miles Tails per hour, a play on the words miles per hour, but then he was renamed to Tails because it's 2 Tails. Tails would become a fan favorite, basically being Sonic's Bulma. He was a mechanic, he knew how to fly a plane at 8 years old, but he also wasn't afraid to get in on action like Sonic, and he became more of his own person and being less dependent on Sonic. Shut up. Sonic 2 will be released on November 21st, 1992 on the day Sonic Tuesday, since it came out on a Tuesday. It wouldn't sell as much as Sonic 1, but it was still the second best selling Sonic game on the Genesis. As years go on, this game will be remembered as one of the best Sonic games to some fans, and will be ported just as much as Sonic 1. I first played Sonic 2 on a Christian Whitehead mobile port, but I couldn't get past Chemical Plant Act 2, and I think some of you know why, but more on that later. I then played the game with Knuckles, but I didn't play through all the Ocean Zone until 2020. But now that I got all the history out the way, let's talk about the game now. There's a little bit more story here, but not that much. Eggman's back and he's capturing Woodland Critters again, with more contraptions and minions and a giant robot, and a possible lawsuit from George Lucas. Sonic and his new friend Tails have to stop him from possibly conquering the Earth. For the gameplay, Sonic controls are mostly the same for the first game. He can move left, right, jump, roll into a ball, but we get one of Sonic 2's new features, the Spin Dash, which lets Sonic charge into a ball and dash as fast as he can, and sometimes he can actually outrun the camera too. Tails isn't just your AI companion, he's also playable in a 2-player mode during the main story, but it will be hard to catch up with Sonic, so the second player won't be able to play for that long. Tails can't die though, which means you can break some of these bosses in half. Sonic 2 also has 2-player races, where one plays as Sonic and the other plays as Tails. You have to play through the entire stage, and whoever gets to the signpost first wins, while the other player has 60 seconds to get to the signpost. There's not much else to talk about except about how much they had to squish the screens to make multiplayer work, and it just looks straight up ugly. It was ahead of its time because before this game, arcade games had 2 different screens for the 2 players, but when games that only came out like 5 to 6 years later do this better, it's kind of hard not to point it out. While playing through these levels, you'll notice star posts, which are checkpoints. I didn't mention this in Sonic 1, but they actually play a bigger role here in Sonic 3. If you collect 50 rings or more and hit a star post, a bunch of stars appear above the star post, which takes you to the special stage, the half pipe. Here, the game gives you a quota of rings to collect, and if you manage to collect the exact amount of rings or more by the end of the special stage, the emerald is yours and is yours to keep for the rest of the game. Tails can also collect rings for you and add up to the total, but you can't be completely reckless because there's a bunch of bombs that you can run into causing your rings to fly out. Now, I know some of these people like these special stages, I always hated them, and I don't know why Sega keeps on bringing them back in every game that has collectible Chaos Emeralds. The first couple of stages aren't too bad, but they start ramping up by the time you get to the 4th special stage. Split-second decision making, just barely dodging bombs, and the stage moving so fast, but that's not why I hate them. Tails is one of the main factors why people hate these special stages. Tails can collect rings like Sonic, but which is good, but his moves are delayed by at least half a second. So if you just barely dodge a bomb, Tails will just slap into it right after you just get out the way. It wouldn't be too surprising if Tails was the main reason to ruin a good run. Like, you could be doing everything right, but then out of nowhere.
God damn it, Tails!
I was gonna get all the Chaos Emeralds for this video, but when I got to the last special stage and found out how insane the expectations are for that level, and I realized that I've been recording for an hour and I wasn't even halfway through the game, I just said, fuck this, I'm playing through the rest of the game as normal. By the way, be careful after you finish the special stage because if you don't have any rings, which it deletes and stuff like this. Once you collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, you unlock Super Sonic, which activates once you collect 50 rings and jump in the air. Super Sonic jumps higher, runs faster, and can't be hurt by enemies. Unfortunately, he can still fall down bottomless pits, drown, and get crushed though. As for the levels themselves, Sonic 2 has a better catalog than Sonic 1. To start off, instead of 3 acts, this game now has 2 acts per zone, which prevents any stage from giving the feeling that it's going on for too long. Every second act ends with an encounter with Robotnik, where he's either piloting a slow-ass moving drill machine, his Eggmobile with a hammer, or his Eggmobile that drops spiky balls. For the first level, we have Emerald Hill Zone, which is basically just a more brighter and colorful Green Hill Zone. Good introductory level, but nothing too special about it. Next is Chemical Plant, which is probably just as iconic as Green Hill. The level aesthetic looks really good, it's fast paced and really fun to outpace the camera in this level. The only part of this level that people don't remember too fondly is the Rising Pink Water in Act 2. This was the main reason why I couldn't get past this level when I was younger, because I kept on drowning at this part. And even if I did, I would probably fall into the water from the 2 death traps that are placed right before the boss. I only got past it when I played as Knuckles and just climbed past it. Aquatic Ruin Zone. This is the closest this game has to a water level, but if you run on the right pathway, you can avoid the water entirely. Casino Night Zone. This level started the trend of having gambling in Sonic games, which kind of started with Spring Yard Zone in the first game, but it was more popularized here because of slot machines. 2 games were made based off the pinball physics from this level. Hilltop Zone, pretty much a Blue Emerald Hill. Mystic Cave Zone. This is actually one of my favorite levels in this game because of the creepy vibes and the music. This level also has the infamous floor. If you fall in it, you have no way of getting out. Not even Super Sonic can get out, and honestly, that makes me laugh more than like get genuinely mad at it, but at the same time it's like, why the fuck would you do that? Oil Ocean Zone. This was the level that prevented me from beating Sonic 2. The seahorses constantly blindsiding you and everything made it one of my least liked levels in this game. But it doesn't get any worse than Metropolis Zone, my personal pick for the worst level in classic Sonic. Labyrinth Zone from Sonic 1 and Sandopolis from Sonic 3 comes close though, but I don't think that the level itself is even that bad, but the enemies just make it completely unbearable. The astronauts aren't too bad to avoid, but the crabs and especially the slicers might actually be one of the worst designed enemies in a video game. For the crab, the only way to destroy it is to hit them from behind, but it's kinda hard to do that when their big ass claws hit you from the moment you're in front of them. Then there's the slicers. They're placed in some of the worst places where it's easier for you to be hit by the slicers, and they're just placed everywhere too. And the worst part about this level is that it has the audacity to have 3 acts instead of just 2. I guess it's the last regular level before the final act, but still though. I never look forward to playing this level whenever I play this game. Sky Chase Home. There's not a lot to talk about here. You're flying on a plane in the sky. That's pretty much it. Wing Fortress Zone. There's a lot of places to fall off, but it's pretty decent. Then there's the final level, Death Egg Zone. This isn't a full level, it's just home to the 2 boss fights. Megasonic, which is alright, but right after that, you get to fight with the Death Egg Robot. In my opinion, this is the best final boss fight in the series. You have no ring, so you can't do anything too reckless, or else you're down 1 life. You gotta make sure you read all the attacks that the Death Egg Robot throws at you, and when you land the final hit on it, you get the satisfying feeling that you're just him. Then after that, the Death Egg explodes, and Sonic escapes from it, just to have Tails save him from when he's falling, ending Sonic 2. I don't really consider Sonic 1 to be a bad game, but Sonic 2 just improves everything that was great from the first game. The experience with new mechanics without making it feel like a completely different game from the first, which is something I feel like newer Sonic games are guilty of doing. Even though it didn't sell as much as the first game, it left its legacy on Sonic fans. Most Sonic fans got their start with this game, and that makes it very nostalgic for most. So about a year after this game, instead of a direct sequel to Sonic 2, we got a game made for the short-lived Sega CD. So while the American team developed Sonic 2, the Japanese team developed this game, Sonic the Hedgehog CD, or just Sonic CD. For the 3 people who don't know or remember, during the early 90s, CD technology was becoming really popular, so Sega made the Sega CD to cash in on the growing popularity, and it ended up being a financial flop. But Sonic CD ended up being the best selling game on the add-on with 1.5 million copies sold, but I'm pretty sure 90% of Sonic fans haven't experienced this game on its original console, because if you're in your late 20s to early 30s, you probably played CD through the Sonic Gems collection, and if you're on my age range, between like 18 to 22, you probably played the mobile version, which is actually the way I first played the game. It was the only classic Sonic game that I ever beaten when I was younger. So since Yuji Naka stayed with the American company, Naoto Oshima took over as the director, and he basically wanted to make an updated version of Sonic 1 since he didn't want to make a numbered sequel like the other team was. Honestly, I feel like the best way to describe this game is just Sonic 1 on crack. It has the same Sonic sprite, and Title Temp is basically just a faster version of Labyrinth Zone. But this game does beat Sonic 1 and 2 in terms of graphics thanks to the Sega CD hardware. Every zone is bright and colorful, but it also knows how to use dark shadings to show how fucked up things get. This game also introduces 2 new characters, the first being Amy Rose, who's named Rosie the Rascal in this game, or Sally Acorn from the Sad Am series, according to the game's manual. She's Sonic's love-struck stalker, and who will stop at no ends to marry Sonic, even if that means physically assaulting him. If these genders were reversed, this would be a horror game. Then we got Metal Sonic, who's basically just an upgraded version of Mecha Sonic from Sonic 2, but Metal Sonic did leave more of a lasting impression on fans, more than Mecha Sonic did though. Me personally, I prefer Shadow as Sonic's rival, but that's just me though. Instead of Masato Nakamura composing the game's soundtrack, this game's soundtrack was produced by Naofumi Hasaya and Masafumi Ogata. I'm not gonna lie, I probably butchered those names. This is also the first Sonic game that had vocal tracks. In this game we have Believe in Yourself and You Can Do Anything, or Toot Toot Sonic Warrior, sung by Kita Utuki. And they're pretty decent songs, but I personally think that the level themes are the highlight of Sonic CD's Japanese soundtrack, and notice I said Japanese soundtrack. So Sonic CD has an English and Japanese soundtrack. The North American soundtrack was composed by Spencer Nilsson, and it's fine. It just doesn't really appeal to me personally. Sonic Boom's the only song here that's notable, if I'm being real here. It's not a bad soundtrack, but I don't even know what they were thinking with some of these songs, because they give off a vibe that wasn't made for a Sonic game, more like a Silent Hill game.
I'm out of here!
That is the stuff of nightmares. I can just imagine that poor 8-year-old who was playing this game in the middle of the night and getting that game over screen. Those mental scars are everlasting. But the Japanese soundtrack, this is one of my favorite Sonic soundtracks, and my second favorite classic era soundtrack. It's really energetic, vibrant, and knows how to be atmospheric too, like the result screen at the end of every level. And there's no arguing that Sonic 1, 2, and 3's result screens are better and more iconic, but I can never get enough of this game's result screen. I know it's just a sample of Believe in Yourself, but I would just hum along with it. By the way, Studiopolis has some notes that came from Collision Chaos from this game, and I can't unhear it. The story isn't any bigger than the last two games. In a lake called Never Lake, Little Planet appears once every year. Little Planet is home to the Time Stones, the stones that can control time. Eggman sees it and says, ooh, I want some of this. And he changes out Little Planet and gains control of his future. Sonic isn't having that shit, so he goes at Little Planet and grabs the Time Stones to save Little Planet. So Sonic CD is a typical 2D Sonic game. Sonic can move left, right, jump, spin dash, but the way it works here is kind of weird because you have to hold a spin dash for a little bit before you take off. In Sonic 2, as long as you're holding down, you can pretty much take off instantly. But in this game, you come to a immediate stop with the moment you let go of the action button. Animation just looks weird in this game too. It looks like he's doing a spin dash, but he's in the roll animation. This is probably done to emphasize Sonic's move, the Super PLO. At standstill, Sonic can rub his legs so much that his shoes turn to a figure 8, and then you take off with Sonic speed. It's basically just a spin dash, but instead of pressing down to activate it, you press up. Moving on to the level, we start off with Palmtree Panic. This is basically just Green Hill on crack. It's a pretty good starting level. Collision Chaos, a bunch of obstacles that bounce you back and forth. It's not too bad, but it can be a little bit annoying. Tidal Tempest, Labyrinth Zone, but with not as many spikes, or places for you to die in. Quartz Quadrant, I don't really have a solid opinion on this level. I love the yellow aesthetics, but the level design is kinda meh. Then we get to Wacky Workbench, and what a pain in the ass. This level's main gimmick is these floors that make Sonic bounce like 20 feet in the air. Not just that, but all these areas that can freeze Sonic and these things that can electrocute you. I hated Wacky Workbench when I first played this game, and my opinion hasn't really changed that much now. Stardust Sppedway, the most iconic level in this game, but when it comes to level design, it's kind of a mess because you're going to be bouncing around a lot, but I like it more than Wacky Workbench. Metal Sonic Race is probably the mode that people remember the most, and it led to Metal Sonic being the fan favorite. Finally, Metallic Madness. It's kind of like Scrap Brain Zone, but nowhere near as harsh, but very long though. It's a fun level, but there isn't a lot to talk about though. The levels in Sonic CD are back to having 3 acts instead of 2, but the third act is usually pretty short since it's the boss act. Sonic CD's main mechanic is time travel. While playing through these levels, you'll see these signs that say either past or future. While passing them, you'll be able to travel to the past or to the future if you run fast enough. The past is all happy, vibrant, while the future is more desolate and depressing. In the past, there's these generators that you can destroy. There's 2 of them in each act, and to make a good future, you have to destroy both of them. This is the part of Sonic CD that usually makes or break the game for people. The past signs are very scarce, but when you do find them, you need to avoid the future time signs that can ruin your chance to go into the past. I don't really think that Sonic CD's levels were designed that well around this playstyle because Sonic CD's levels are more vertical than the other games, so I have to go up and down and all around. I always went for the time machines in my previous playthroughs and the playthrough that I did on the 2011 remaster, but for my playthrough on the original game, I just decided to go for the time zones. Just like in Sonic 1, if you have 50 rings or more, you can enter a giant ring and go to a special stage. Here you have to destroy 6 UFOs, and if you touch the water, it drains your timer. Around that time, you're booted out of the special stage. There's different color UFOs that you can destroy to give you extra time and speed shoes. Collect all the time stones, you get the good ending. But since these are time stones and not chaos emeralds, you can't go supersonic. These special stages they're fine. I remember being really hard getting used to the controls with the touchpad on the mobile board, but it's a little bit better with the controller. It's manageable enough for me to get all of them. And these stages do look pretty interesting, and then there's one like this, and this hurts my eyes. Overall, Sonic CD is an above average 2D Sonic game. Levels are fun and it controls pretty well, but the level design is kinda all over the place. Where this places in my classic Sonic ranking, it's tied for last place with Sonic 1 because I can really switch between either one. If you're gonna play this game, play the remaster. I think that the spin dash being there automatically makes it a better version. But now let's talk about the last game in this video, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. Out of all the classic Sonic games, Sonic 3 has the most interesting development history. So after the release of Sonic 1 and 2, Sonic instantly became a video game icon, and Sega realized that. Like, they knew that the spotlight was on him, and they wasted no time making another game. Sonic 3 started development in 1993, and because of all the regional issues that Sonic 2's development had, Sonic 3's development team was mostly Japanese. Sonic 3 was originally supposed to be a 3D game named Sonic 3D that would use the Sega Genesis CFP or the Sega Virtual Processing Chip. It's basically the Genesis Super FX chip. And it was first used in the game Virtual Racing, and it looked pretty good, but after finding out that it would take way too much money to produce, they scrapped the 3D idea entirely. But it'll still be used in the game with the special stages since they already made the models. For this game, they wanted to give Sonic a rival. SCI held a contest, and over 100 submissions were sent to them, and a sketch of a character named Knuckles by Takashi Yuta won the contest. After a bunch of meetings, Knuckles the Echidna was born. His fur was red in contrast with Sonic's blue color. He had knuckles with spikes on them. He has spines that go straight down, which are also called his dreadlocks, and you know, I got no problem with that. And he has a white crescent on his chest that symbolizes the moon, while Sonic's round stomach represents the sun, which is something I never thought about before, but that's actually kind of cool. But there are some issues going on behind the scenes which involved a tie-in with McDonald's. So Sega struck a deal with McDonald's to have a Happy Meal tie-in with the release of Sonic 3, but dealing with this caused them to slip away from working on the game, but instead of scrapping some of the content like they did with Sonic 2, the game was split into two games. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was released on February 2nd, 1994, and Sonic & Knuckles was released on October 18th of that same year, and it's kinda like how Resident Evil 2 was split into two discs. Instead of being a different perspective of the story, it's a continuation from Sonic 3, but Sonic & Knuckles came with a lock-on feature, so you can put the Sonic 3 cartridge and you can play the game how it was supposed to be. Sonic 3 is a bigger game than Sonic 1, 2, and CD, and we got a lot to talk about, so let's start with the story. This is the first game in the series to show an overarching plot in the game itself. Taking place after Sonic 2, the Death Egg is fallen to a mysterious floating island called Angel Island. Sonic and Tails are following it, and Sonic goes super to end things quickly, and this will be the only time Super Sonic will make an appearance in an opening cutscene until Sonic Unleashed 14 years later. While traveling to the island, Sonic gets fucking rocked by Knuckles so hard that it knocks the Chaos Emeralds out of him, literally knocks the Super Saiyan out of him. Angel Island is home to the Master Emerald, which Knuckles guards. Eggman wants to use the Master Emerald's power to rebuild his space station. He pits Knuckles and Sonic against each other until he sees that Eggman is stealing his precious Master Emeralds, so now he, Sonic, and Tails have to team up to stop Eggman. There's a lot of new stuff to go over, so let's start off with the save system. This is the first Sonic game to have an autosave feature, which means you can stop playing one day and then pick it back up another day without worrying about losing your progress. You still have continues in this game, but since you can save the game whenever you want, they're kind of pointless now. For the gameplay, we now have 3 playable characters, which will divide the Sonic community for years to come, but here, they're perfect since every character plays mostly the same but with one unique trait to them. Sonic controls exactly like he did before, but he has the same spin dash like he did in Sonic 2 where you can let go of the action button anytime you want. But now he has a new ability called the Insta Shield. Press the jump button the second time and there's a frame of animation where you can hit enemies without taking damage. I sometimes forget I had this move. I'm not saying that it's bad, I just can never get the timing down. Next we have the newcomer Knuckles. He can glide, uses Knuckles to climb up walls, and he can walk through unbreakable walls too, but he has a short jump but he goes through more dangerous pathways than Sonic or Tails. To be honest, I don't think that this game is very difficult with either characters, but it's pretty obvious they wanted Knuckles to be the hard mode. On the flip side we have Tails, who's pretty much the easy mode. He's as fast as Sonic and he can fly to skip certain areas to make platforming sections a complete joke. Honestly, Tails might be my least favorite character to play as in this game. There's nothing about him I think that's bad. I just like Sonic Elemental Shield abilities and Knuckles climbing and gliding more. Speaking of which, all the old power-ups come back, but we also have some new power-ups like the Elemental Shields. We have the Fire Shield will make you invulnerable to fire hazards, the Bubble Shield will let you breathe underwater, and the Electric Shield that attract rings to you. You also get specific abilities to those shields, but only Sonic can use them, which sounds lame, but since Knuckles and Tails already have their own cool character abilities, I don't mind, but they're only temporary. The Fire Shield lets you do a mid-air dash, the Bubble Shield lets you bounce for extra height, and the Electric Shield gives you a double jump, which automatically makes it my favorite. The Elemental Shield really should make a comeback. Just like in Sonic 1 and 2, you need to collect the Chaos Emeralds, but instead of collecting 50 rings or getting to a giant ring at the end of the stage or reaching a star post, you just need to find a giant ring that leads to the special stages, and I really like that because it encourages you to look around and explore your areas, something that I think that Sonic CD was trying to do but ultimately failed. As for the special stages themselves, these are my favorite special stages in the entire series, the Blue Spheres. Here you run on a pseudo 3 area where you collect a set number of Blue Spheres. Once you collect those Blue Spheres, they turn into Red Spheres, and if you touch those Red Spheres, you're immediately kicked out of the stage. Hit all the Blue Spheres, you get the Chaos Emerald. Get all the Chaos Emeralds, you have to be Super Sonic or Super Knuckles. Sega really needs to bring back the Blue Spheres, and I'm not the only one who thinks that. This game came out in 1994, it's now 2025, and the only other game that had Blue Spheres since then was Sonic Mania, and that was more than half a decade ago. Why do they keep on bringing back the half-pipe when we can have this? But hey, this is the only Classics game where I actually like getting all the Chaos Emeralds, because not only are the special stages fun, but I actually like look for the giant rings to get to the special stage too. You can actually get all the Chaos Emeralds by the second or third stage, but by the time you get to Mushroom Hill, there's another 7 special stages to get the Super Emeralds. These are Chaos Emeralds powered up by the Master Emerald. Collecting all the Super Emeralds give you a brand new form, Hypersonic. This is basically just Super Sonic on crack. He's faster, jumps higher, and causes flashbangs. You also get Hyper Knuckles and Super Knuckles. Yeah, Tails can't go super with the Chaos Emeralds, he needs the Super Emeralds. I mean, it's never really explained why that is, but he probably has the best super form. Why? 4 words.
Flicky Army of Death!
When Tails goes supers, he has these 4 flickies that murder anything they see, go into boss fights, and watch these demons just destroy Eggman while you just stand there doing nothing. I usually don't use the character's super forms or hyper forms until I get to the boss fights, but when you transform, the invincibility theme plays, and it loops every 10 seconds, and it gets ear-grating fast. And sad part is, I really love Sonic 3's soundtrack. It's one of my favorite soundtracks by far. Like, it's so poppy, it's vibrant, uses so many instruments, and there's not a song in the soundtrack that I don't like. My favorites are Hydro City, Reverie, Flying Battery, Ice Cap, the Blue Fear stages, Death Egg Zone, Sky Sanctuary, the boss fight theme. Even the stage select theme sounds good. Like, this is a screen you probably spent like 10 to 15 seconds, but they went above and beyond here. But this wouldn't be a Sonic 3 review if I didn't talk about the history behind the soundtrack. So apparently Michael Jackson offered to produce the soundtrack for this game, and Sega agreed, but in mid-1993, Jackson would abandon the project, and over 30 years since this game first came out, nobody really knows if he actually produced the soundtrack or not. This is around the time where he was getting some heavy allegations, so maybe that's why. He probably did in some levels, because especially in Launch Base Zone, you can hear some of his influence there. I don't know, man. Sonic 3's soundtrack history is weird. Now that you get the Chaos Emeralds through these giant rings, what are the checkpoints for now? I mean, other than saving your progress, obviously. You access the bonus stages where you get extra lives. There's 3 types of them: the one where you gamble, the one with the gumball machine, and one with the glowing spheres. Honestly, it's pretty easy to farm lives in this game, but giving us these bonus stages to give us more lives to farm feels kind of excessive. So because Sonic Team wanted this game to be bigger than Sonic 2, the levels are a lot longer than Sonic 2. Most levels aren't any shorter than 3 minutes. While some people might see that as a flaw, I like it because it makes Sonic 3 feel like a grand adventure. Each second act is a continuation from the first act, and there's a transition in between levels, making everything feel connected. Both acts now have bosses, and it's either Eggman piloting one of his robots or one of his robots doing his job for him. For the levels themselves, they might be some of the best sets of levels in the entire series. Angel Island Zone, probably the only mainline Genesis game that doesn't have its starting level be Green Hill 2.0. There's flames and fire everywhere, and there's water in the bottom half of the stage. Hydro City, water level is actually pretty fun. It's fast paced, the water sections don't drag on for too long, and the bubble shield makes the Underwood level a lot of fun. It's actually one of my favorite stages. Marble Garden Zone. This was a level that I got stuck on when I played this game on the DS collection. This level's fine, I just don't really like the emphasis on the spinning top thing, especially in the second act. Carnival Night Zone, one of the most infamous levels in this game because of the barrels and not knowing that pressing up and down is what moves the barrels. Other than that, it's a pretty fun level. The carnival mechanics actually never get in the way of anything. Ice Cap Zone. Usually I hate ice levels and platforms, but not here. For one, there's no ice physics, and the level has one of my favorite tracks in the game. Not much else to say here, it's just so good. Launch Base Zone. This is where Eggman's base is located and is preparing to launch. This level doesn't have anything that's amazing or terrible in it. Mushroom Hill Zone. There's a bunch of mushrooms that bounce you around and these little seesaw things. I don't mind them because they don't really slow the game down. Flying Battery Zone. Another great level with good music. Sandopolis Zone. My least favorite level in the game. It's not bad, but it just drags on for too long, especially in Act 2 with that lever gimmick. Lava Reef Zone, you're gonna get hit a lot if you don't have the fire shield here. Hidden Palace Zone, it's pretty much a transitional level between Lava Reef and Sky Sanctuary. This is where you fight Knuckles, and he's a joke even without using Supersonic. Sky Sanctuary, the only level in this game that has one act, and it's the last level that Knuckles has to play in though. And this is where you fight Mega Sonic, who's a lot chunkier than he was in Sonic 2. Then we have the last full level in the game, Death Egg Zone. This level isn't as hard as Scrap Rain Zone in Sonic 1, but it can kick my ass every now and then. Then we have Doomsday Zone, the extra level that only Sonic can access when you collect all the Chaos Emeralds. This is where you have to fight upon a boss, and I don't think this boss is as good as Sonic 2's final boss, but it's still a spectacle either way. Eggman's robots shoot out rockets to hit you, and they don't hurt you, but they stun you causing them to fall back, which is why you have to direct them to hit Eggman. Then in the second phase, you need to ram your head into him while he runs away with the Master Emerald. Hit him a couple of times, and Eggman's down for the count. Sonic falls into Earth's core, Tails catches them and the Master Emerald, and then Knuckles looks at them in the Angel Island while smiling, making this a start of a new friendship and marking the end of an era. So if you couldn't tell at this point, I really love this game. For this video alone, I played this game 3 different times for Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles and got all the Chaos Emeralds and Super Emeralds, and I didn't get burnt out, nor did I feel bored while playing it. Side note, also did sample Sonic 3 Angel Island Revision, and it might be the best version of the game, so yeah, play that if you want to play Sonic 3. This isn't just my favorite 2D Sonic game, but my favorite Sonic game period, and possibly my favorite platformer of all time. I actually think it's that good. And I say that as someone who played this game for the first time like 7 or 8 years ago, so this isn't really nostalgia talking. I know some people prefer Sonic 2 over Sonic 3 because it's shorter, faster paced, and more simplistic, and I can understand that, but I actually kind of like the more complex and varied level design in Sonic 3. People always talk about how classic Sonic game always encourage replayability and for you to always explore your surroundings. I think no other 2D Sonic game does that better than this game. The giant rings hidden around each level encourage you to look around every nook and cranny, not just to get the giant rings, but also extra lives and elemental shields. Plus, the different characters to play also add more replay value, being able to find different new pathways as Knuckles or reaching higher pathways as Tails. They changed up the gameplay without making it feel completely like a different game, which is something I feel like the early 3D games suffered with. Plus, if you don't like the longer stages, you don't have to finish everything once saving. That's what the save system's for. This is also the only classic Sonic game that doesn't have a level that I can't stand, so that gives it bonus points. The levels are tightly designed, the characters are fun to play as, and are different enough from each other. The music's so good, and you gotta appreciate the ambition, not only just to tell a deeper story for a 2D platform in the 90s, but also because this game's graphical presentation is just amazing. And Sonic 1 and 2 were already pretty good looking games, but this game really took the graphics to the next level. Even again, the chaos levels didn't feel too draining. Matter of fact, the super rumbles give you more incentive to keep looking around your surroundings. Nothing in this game really pissed me off, and there's not a lot that I can complain about, and that's enough for me to call this one of my favorite games ever. I'd recommend that you play this game if you're a Sonic fan, but chances are that you already have. So that's gonna be it for this video. I want to thank you guys for watching, and also want to, apologize for not posting that much in March or April. Lacking motivation and also like other stuff going on in my life, like school and shit. But that's all gonna change since summer's coming up soon. So want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace. I did Willer from whatever.